Good evening. We call this meeting to order for the September 3rd, 2025 Apple Valley Planning Commission meeting. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there any changes from staff?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We have no changes for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Move approval. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Hellis. The next item on the agenda is have a motion for approval. And I'm sorry, I'm out of order here. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay? That progresses. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and will be enacted with a single motion unless the commissioner requests to pull an item. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Hollis. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. That moves forward. There are no public hearings this evening. And, move to item number 5, which is a land use action item for Valley Station Apartments.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Tonight we have an application that was before you at the July 16th meeting. The land use request that they're asking for is to approve a 144-unit workforce housing apartment development. The two requests that they're asking for is to approve amendments to PD number 507 and then approval of the site plan building permit authorization. So tonight this would be a continuation of that follow-up discussion and review of the responses from the public comments that we received that night. The site is located at 15584 Gaslight Drive, which is at the corner of Gaslight and 155th and is directly south of the Apple Valley Transit Station. The future guided land use is suburban intensive high density, and the zoning is PD 507 subzone 2, which the applicant is asking for the amendments to that PD district. There's 6 amendments that they're requesting. One is to reduce the setback along Collector Street from 40 feet to 25, increase the maximum units per acre from 16 to 48, and reduce the minimum square footage of the land required per unit from 2,760 to 916 square feet. Allow the coverage to increase from 20% to 35% of the lot. Increase the maximum stories from 3 to 5 stories and the maximum height from 45 to 60 feet. And then the last one is to eliminate the minimum 1 to 3 roof pitch requirements and to allow for a flat roof. As I mentioned, the site is at the corner of Gaslight and 155th. Access will be from the north and the west. The building will be a 5-story apartment building for workforce housing. The building itself will face east with the parking lot located in front. There'll be a tot lot and other community amenities included in the site. Their landscape plan includes a heavy mix of trees around the perimeter of the board of the lot, and then interior shrubs around the and foundation plantings. They do have a heavy mix of screening trees on the south property line to screen it from the adjacent property. And then along the east property line, they will have a 6-foot fence for screening from the adjacent townhomes. The photometric plan that was submitted includes a nice spread of light on the site with the levels that are on the adjacent property owners on the east property line, the highest is 0.3 foot candles. Otherwise, the perimeter of the site does not exceed those that's allowed by the ordinance. The light levels that are located along Gaslight Drive, I just wanted to point out that those do not actually incorporate any of the on-street lighting that would also be available, which would add additional lighting to the site. I'll just go through the architectural plans. Some of these you have seen at the last meeting, but one change that the developer has made is with the 5 stories, there were some concerns about the height. And in the northeast corner of the building, they have reduced that height from 5 stories to 4 stories to try and limit the impact to the adjacent property owners. Here's another elevation that shows the reduced height at this corner of the building. That reduction also reduces the densities from 148 down to 144 units. This is the elevation looking from the southwest. And here's another elevation looking directly from the east. Again, this is the main area facing east, and then this is the reduced height of the building again. This is the overall of the area showing the proposed structure. And then I just wanted to go over a little bit more the affordable workforce housing, the program itself. The program includes incentives to developers and investors that provide them tax credits to help promote building affordable rental housing. This program targets working families to provide that housing, and the rents are determined by the area median income, which does change each year. To qualify, you do need to meet specific income requirements, and the program does allow tenants to improve their financial standing, potentially move up to home ownership. And then the table on the screen, there's just showing the mix of the units that are proposed with the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, anticipated rents, and then also what the income restrictions are, depending on the household size. One of the other items that had great discussion at the last meeting was the parking and the traffic. And staff had recommended that they submit a detailed parking analysis, which they have done. They divided that analysis into 2 sections, the parking review and then also the traffic review. The parking, they utilize the Institute of Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual. That is a standard document that's used in determining how much parking is needed for the different types of land uses out there. For this site, the 85th percentile peak parking demand range came back at that this site would need 202 to 235 spaces. And then the average demand range was at 144 to 166 spaces. So with that assessment, the engineer did determine that the proposed parking that's being provided on the site was sufficient. The parking, or the analysis also included traffic. They looked at the traffic volumes, the crash history, and then also the intersection capacity at 155th and Gaslight. After the review, they determined that the intersection and the approaches will continue to operate at a level of service B or better after the development is constructed. And then the intersection, there were some comments that were brought up regarding if a traffic signal would be required. And the engineer's analysis indicated that the existing and the future traffic volumes would not meet the criteria to require a traffic signal or an always stop condition at that location. I do have all the other public hearing responses that were came up during our meeting. I'll go through these as fast as I can. There's 20 of them. And then after that, the developer does have a brief PowerPoint that he also wants to present. But as I go through these, if there's any that you have questions on, just let me know and I can stop and answer any of your questions. So one of the first ones was response or public hearing comments that we got was, how can you mitigate the change in the character of the area with the 5-story building? And as I mentioned before, the developer has revised his architectural plans and he reduced that building height from 5 stories to 4 at that northeast corner. And again, it also reduced the density down to 46.45 units per acre. One of the other questions was, is it possible to recess one of the stories? The developer did say it was possible. However, he felt it would not provide enough of an impact and instead opted to reduce the building to 4 stories at the one corner. Another question that came up was, who will maintain the sidewalk and trees along the east property line adjacent to the Chasewood family townhomes? That property is owned by the Dakota County CDA, so they would be responsible for the maintenance. And when I was out at the site, because it has been vacant, the site is pretty overgrown. A lot of the trees are growing over onto the site. And with this development, that will clean up the site when they would do their landscaping. Number 4, what is the typical number of residents per unit? The developer indicated that on all their other developments, they typically see 1.2 to 1.3 residents per bedroom, but that it is common for one-bedroom unit to have 2 occupants, which would equate to 2.4 to 2.6 residences per unit. 5, will there be enough guest parking? Again, the parking analysis indicated that the proposed parking spaces are sufficient and can accommodate the proposed use. Since then, I also want to point out that the developer did make revisions to the site plan and the interior of the garages, and they were able to add additional parking spaces. So with additional garage spaces, they were able to increase the parking to 248 spaces, or 1.72 spaces. But then they also were able to add 2 additional surface parking, which brings the final parking count to 250, or 1.7 spaces per unit. And I just wanted to clarify, there was some confusion because of all the site revisions that were going back and forth, so that these are the final parking calculations. Number 6, what are the typical parking ratios per unit in the Twin Cities for 2 and 3 bedroom units? So the developer did provide some of their parking ratios for sites that they already own, and in the traffic and parking analysis, they also provided some additional ones. I did include this table in the presentation. It included 3 additional sites that are in Apple Valley, so you'd have kind of a comparison. So of the 3 that are in Apple Valley, Kingston Green has a parking ratio of 1.42 spaces per unit. Remington Cove has a parking ratio of 1.85 spaces per unit, and then Novella 1 and 2, which was 2 phases. So the combined parking ratio is 1.5 spaces per unit. Number 7 was a question that came up, was would residents park in the cul-de-sac to the southeast? We can't predict for sure that they wouldn't, but just staff does not believe they would, just based on the site improvements that they're going to make to that site with the landscaping and the fencing. It would not make it an easy walk for anyone that would park in that cul-de-sac to walk over to the site. Number 8, someone asked if can fire trucks maneuver within the site, and the developer did provide the required turning movement exhibits of a fire truck, which those did demonstrate would meet the radiuses. Number 9 was how many residents will only use transit and will not have a vehicle. That question in the data is really hard to quantify, but the developer did indicate that of other sites, 20% of the residents do not have a car. Of those other sites, they were not located next to transit stations. So he also thought that because of that, it would be more likely that at this site, there would be some residents that would not have a vehicle. Number 10 was what is the height of the Legends apartments compared to the proposed apartment building? The Valley Station apartments, the height is proposed at 57 feet, and the Legends height ranges in height from 52 to 72 feet, which is due to the difference in grade and the pitch roof. So, and just to remind you, the Legends has 4 stories, and this site has 5 stories. Question number 11, request for formal lighting plan. The emphasis along the east property line. Will the light affect adjacent housing? Will light shine in the adjacent homes? So the photometric plan was provided, which showed the estimated light levels at 0.01 to 0.03 foot candles at the east property line. At those levels, that would not create a disturbance. And then one of the questions was would whether the light shine into the adjacent homes, and with the height of the structure, that could be a possibility. Number 12, how does the proposed density compare to the developments to the east and south? So the Chasewood rental townhomes to the east has a density of 10.9 units per acre. And then to the south is it was done in 2 phases, that apartment building, which is called Orchard Square and Cortland Apartments, and that has a net density of 22.8 units per acre. And then number 13, how does the green space and playground size compare to the development to the east? Is there a way to measure what size playground or dog run is needed for the size of the proposed development? So I measure the Chasewood townhomes. They have a fairly large outdoor play area and gathering area, which is at 6,480 square feet. The Orchard Square, Cortland, those are senior apartments, so that does not have a playground, but there is on the north portion of that lot a walkway and an open area. We did check, and we could not find that there were any standards for playground sizes in the private apartment projects, but in your packet, the developer did include some ratios of some other sites of both playground space area and also dog run area. On number 14, what is the impact to the utilities, specifically electric, water, and sewer? Those utilities have been sized appropriately, and there would not be any negative impacts. Number 15, will the height block views of the adjacent homes? Will the apartment residents be able to look into the Cedar Point townhome windows? With that building being 5 stories and Cedar Point only being 2-story structures, even though it is located over 200 feet away, it may be possible to look into the window if someone did have window coverings. Number 16, could a mistake have been made for this site in the 2040 comprehensive plan? I did go back and look, and since 2030 comp plan, this site has been, at that time it was designated mixed use, which allows high density. And then in the 2040, it was designated the SIHD designation, which specifically called out in the comp plan that that designation would be located along areas where the transit services are provided. Number 17, will the greenway area on the Cortland apartments be affected? Who owns that and maintains it? Nope, that area will not be affected. It's owned by the Dakota County CDA, and it's their responsibility to maintain that. And then 18, will there be a buffer to the south and east? Yes, the landscape providings will be provided, and there's also a fence that would be provided along the east property line. And then number 19, will there be a sidewalk connection to the east or south? This proposal does not include any connections to the private developments, but there is sidewalk connections to the north and to the west that would connect to the existing sidewalks. And then also in the original plans, there are proposal to increase the lighting along that area where the pedestrian walkways would be on Gaslight and 155th. And then they will also be required to improve the crosswalk going across 155th to the north. And then the last comment was the concerns with crime and safety that were brought up. Staff did seek input from Chief Francis regarding the calls for service. He did provide that for a 1-year period at the existing affordable housing developments that are in our community, and those numbers were provided in your packet. In general, regarding crime and safety, increased density does lead to additional demand on that public safety services. Apartments do also generate more calls just because people are sharing walls and they're living in close proximity of other residents. So staff does believe that the higher density housing would result in increased demand on public services. Nothing that Chief Francis said was out of the ordinary, and it would be expected. So with that, those are the responses to all the public hearing comments that we received. If you have any questions on those or on any other portions of the proposal, I can answer those for you, or the applicant, he has a short presentation that he would also like, but he can answer any questions you have also.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to item number 16 on your presentation, I was curious, it's it's carried out a little bit more, in more detail in the actual memorandum. But I note there that it just says that the SIHD designation did not increase the existing densities of the sites, and that the city has already approved the densities.
So that statement was actually right in the comp plan.
So, so the densities that were set forth there, is that the densities of the 16 units per acre?
The densities previously went up to 24, I believe. And I was not here for the 2040 comp plan, and I don't know it as well, being new. But the densities of the SIHD designation, they overlap a little bit, but that area was already designated as high density. In the comp plan, they actually called out that section, they noted in there that although that was a new designation with the 2040 comp plan, it's stated right in the comp plan that it didn't approve, or it didn't increase any of the approved densities, that the 2040 or the 2030 comp plan had already provided for higher densities on those sites.
When you use the phrase high density, what, like, does that cover a particular range of units per acre?
It does, and off the top of my head, I apologize, I don't recall what the 2030 comp plan was. But the 2040 allows up to, with this designation, the SIHD, allows up to 48 units per acre.
Okay, so when it comes to that designation, up to 48 units per acre, but again, these particular parcels weren't increased in density.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? I had a question. If you have the rendering that shows floor plan level 1, I think it's called. This one?
Yes.
What is meant by, in the middle of the plan, trash pad?
So that would be when they pull out the dumpster for garbage pickup. It would not be stored there, but that's just the location for when it's the day that their service provider hauls their trash.
Okay, so where is that stored then? Is that
It has to be stored interior of the site. So that is common when it's interior. The garbage vehicle doesn't have access to it, so they will have a pad where they pull it out just on the garbage day so that they can easily access that.
okay, thank you. And then the other thing I was going to ask you, with the change in, or the increase in parking spaces, do those, with all the parking spaces, we're still maintaining the Apple Valley standard in terms of dimensions that the spaces are required to maintain, or did something change there?
The surface parking on the exterior parking lot, those meet all the requirements. The interior garage spaces, there are some that are proposed to be compact size.
Okay, all right. Okay, those are the questions I had for right now, so thank you.
Couple,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, a couple more questions. With respect to Exhibit B, there's a reference to the Chasewood townhomes with 27 units. This is not a fair question, I'm sure, so I apologize in advance for it. But do you know what the density per acre is of the Chasewood townhomes?
I do have that. The density of Chasewood was 10.9 units per acre.
Okay. And then similar question for the quarry with the 45 units, what would the density be there?
I apologize, I do not know the density of that one. I had just looked up the ones
No,
that were
and
adjacent to the site.
it's kind of I should have thought of this when I was looking through it earlier, and so I apologize for springing that question on you. And then with the similar apology, there's also a reference to the Glenbrook townhomes and the 39 units. Any idea what the density there is?
Commissioner Mohold, I apologize, I do not know the density.
No, it's not a fair question to spring it on you at this point, but I'm just curious, because I guess for me, the biggest hangup that I have with this proposal is the density. Especially when you look at the units to the east and to the south, and the drastic increase in the density per acre for this particular proposal. So to me, it all relates to the issues and concerns that accompany high-density developments, and these don't appear to be anywhere close to the density of the proposal. So I guess that's just my observation. So thank you. And again, I apologize for the
No need to apologize.
fairly specific questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're good for right now.
So if we can just switch over the PowerPoint to the developers. He just wants to go over some of the changes that have been
please.
made since
Yep.
before you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Blaine Barker with Real Estate Equities. I also have representatives of Cost Wilson Architects and Laux Engineering here this evening. Thanks again for welcoming us back and allowing us to present some of the changes we made. So just briefly, I want to kind of touch base on who we are again. We are a multifamily developer, owner, and management company based in St. Paul. We currently own and manage about 38 properties, which the overwhelming majority are here in the Twin Cities, including 4 in Dakota County. And we manage everything we own everything we manage, and we own all of our properties long-term. Here are examples of 4 developments we've done in the suburban Twin Cities. These are also the 4 properties we provided the comparisons for the dog run and playground comparisons. So Astor House in Egan was 204 units. Again, very similar, the workforce housing with a lot of the family units for 2 and 3 bedroom units. Landing at Amber Fields, 160 units in Rosemont. Arbor Court is 114 in St. Louis Park. And then Spring House is 168 in Coon Rapids. And these are all very similar to the development we are proposing here. Workforce housing, targeting that 60% AMI that Terry touched on earlier, with a focus on the larger bedroom sizes. These are the same 4 properties. The previous slide was the exteriors. Here are the interiors. So the top row are the unit kitchens, and then the bottom are examples of the club rooms and lobby areas. I had mentioned at the prior meeting that although it's workforce housing, although there are rent and income restrictions, we really build it to a market rate standard. So you can see the granite countertops, the LVP flooring, the stainless steel appliances, laundry's included in the unit. So we really build them to a market rate standard, and this provides an example of what the finished product would be for this property if it's able to move forward. Here are just some more examples. I've listed community amenities that we are proposing. So we typically include a fitness center, a club room that connects to an outdoor patio with a grilling area. We have an outdoor playground. Since the last meeting, we've been able to include an indoor play area in our common area to allow for year-round rec space for children and to increase the amount of play space on site. And then we will also have a dog run. And then I went over the unit features as well, which you can see again here. Here's the current rendering reflecting the step down in the northeast corner. This is looking from the intersection of Gaslight and 155th. So we're at 144 units, ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms, large focus on the 2 and 3 bedroom units. Currently proposing 250 parking stalls, which includes the covered stalls as well as stalls in the surface lot, and that's a 1.74 unit ratio. So I wanted to go over some of the changes since July that we've made. So when we presented to you all a few months back, we were proposing 148 units, which was the maximum density allowed. By stepping down that building, we have reduced the units by 4. That also partially reduced the height of the building. We were able to add 11 parking stalls, some in the garage, some in the surface lot. And so that made a pretty significant change to our parking ratio, combination of reducing units and increasing stalls. We've increased that ratio from 1.61 to 1.74 stalls per unit. And then we've kept the outdoor play space the same size. We've provided some comparisons. When you look at this property compared to the 4 other examples, this is actually the second largest outdoor play space of the 5. And then we were also able to add that indoor playroom for some additional recreational space. And then I have 3 kind of side-by-side photos kind of showing the impact of reducing the height of the building in the northeast corner. So this is that similar angle I provided earlier. The slide on the left is what we presented in July with the full 5 stories. And the slide on the right is the revised proposal. This is another look from 155th, where you can see the step down. And then lastly, this is looking more from the townhome side, kind of from the southeast corner there. Just another angle of the reduced height. We specifically targeted the northeast corner for the reduction in building height because that is the portion of the building that is closest to the neighbors to the east. So thanks again for welcoming us back, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you for being back and listening to some of the comments that came back and the adjustments that you did make. So thank you for doing that. Any of the commissioners have specific questions they'd like to ask? Go ahead.
Thanks for coming back and making the changes and updating the questions that we had previously. I do remember something about the parking from the previous, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you're allowing the parking spaces to the tenants without additional charges. Is that correct?
That's, Commissioner Halas, thank you for mentioning that. That's correct. So the 4 examples I provided of the developments we have in Coon Rapids, Eagan, Rosemont, and St. Louis Park, we actually charge for the garage parking at all 4 of those properties, and those have a parking ratio ranging from, I believe it's 1.69 to a little over 2 stalls per unit. But the Valley Station apartments that we're proposing is unique, and this would be the only one of the 5 that that garage parking would not be a separate charge.
You don't foresee in the future that any changes in that policy, that looking to encourage as much in-house underground parking and not spreading out in the neighborhood someplace?
That's correct. Once we make that decision, due to the implications on the financing of the federal tax credits that Terry mentioned, we actually cannot change that once we make that decision.
Very good, thanks.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Sure. Thank you. With respect to the elevations and particularly the side-by-sides that you showed, I'm just curious, it looks in all of those renderings and like the next 2 renderings, there's a significant green space shown in those. Is that, I'm trying to reconcile the next 2 side-by-sides with the overhead that shows all, I mean, the parking and things like that. Is that accurate in terms of the green space associated with this development? I don't know if that question makes any sense.
Commissioner Mahawald, it does. I may ask either Netchme or Alex. I think you're referring to the green space that would be
To the east of the building.
to the east
In
of
this-
the
In this
building.
rendering, and then in the next one, I think it's kind of looking from the east, and it looks like there's a large grassy area. And I'm just trying to see where that might be when I look at the aerial, down view, where it looks to me like most of the area to the east, as it relates to your property, is all parking, and then you get into the townhome development immediately to the east. So I just don't think, I guess, is this an accurate rendering of the view from the east, or has, additional green space been added to it?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I don't think it's fully accurate. It's also not incorporating the 6-foot fence. That'd be another screening between the two properties. So I apologize, but the green space does not appear to be fully accurate. The main point of the side-by-side rendering was to kind of emphasize the height. So I apologize for the oversight on
That's okay.
on that green area.
Then the only other area, like with respect to the play space, I like the addition of the indoor play area as well. But are the indoor and outdoor play areas kind of designated for children under the age of 8, under the age of, like, what is the age range that would typically, like, participate in or use that space?
Yeah, thanks again, Commissioner. Playground equipment is typically, there's 2 age buckets that equipment typically serves. It either serves ages 2 to 5 or 5 to 12. In that space, we could fit either of those in the outdoor space. And we are welcome to feedback on what you would prefer to see there. We do anticipate the indoor area to be for younger kids.
And then with respect to, I know you have other developments in the metro area or elsewhere. So when it comes to children who are, again, if you're targeted to the 2 to 5, let's just say from 10 to 18, would it be likely then that the children who are residents of this will be walking over to the much larger outdoor playground and park area in the adjacent development? Is that kind of where the teenagers would go? Or what happens with that age group of children?
Yep. Thanks again, Commissioner. I can't speak to what teenagers may do. I would not anticipate that teenagers would utilize the play equipment that we are anticipating to provide.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Couple of things. I did note the rendering too from the east side, so I would ask that if this proceeds tonight to the next step, that you would update those to better reflect the reality of the existing property and the fence, so that when it's looked at, that it can be looked at from a vantage point of what can be expected with the final product. That would be appreciated if moving forward with this. And how do you, with our concerns with parking and so forth, how is snow removal handled in terms of snow storage? I mean, does that have to be removed each snowfall, or are you planning on that you have to sacrifice X number of parking spaces for snow storage?
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Scanlon. Understood on correcting the rendering to make it more accurate. Again, I apologize for that oversight. Regarding snow removal, it is never our intent to lose parking spaces during the winter. The parking ratio we're providing, we expect that to be the parking ratio year-round. Typically, we would provide kind of a snow storage exhibit and work with staff on that. And if staff determines, and I don't want to speak for what city staff's own process, but with other cities in the past, we've provided exhibits for storage. And if it's determined that the locations on site are inadequate, then we would have to haul off snow.
You don't have a lot of options on site. It doesn't appear, there's not a lot of green space or space on site to move snow to. And that's kind of leading to my question and what that means with parking as you go forward with things. The other question I had is not just for myself, but anybody that would be listening to have a better understanding of your definition or how you would define workforce housing and how your management style to these properties. Is there somebody that lives on site or the remote or, just to give somebody a better understanding of how you as the company manages those the property and residents and so forth, or any concerns that would come up?
Yep. Thanks again, Commissioner Scanlon. So workforce housing or affordable housing can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For us, we're targeting people, households that make 60% of the area median income adjusted for household size. The area median income is determined annually by HUD, and it's for the 7-county metro area. So it's not specific to Apple Valley or Dakota County. That is a metric that is as the metro overall. And to kind of put it into perspective, the limit for a single occupant is about $55,000. That'd be someone making, $27 an hour. Which you think about various retail and service jobs, there are many that are at or below that rate. So really, the income levels are targeting people working in the community through a wide range of jobs, whether it's service-related, retail-related, some manufacturing jobs will fall under that limit. In terms of management, we have an on-site manager, on-site maintenance. We'd probably have 3 full-time employees at this property. We typically do not have anyone living at the property, but Monday through Friday during business hours, it is staffed. And then we have, on-call maintenance during the weekends and off of business hours that if anything comes up, residents can call. And, any issues they may have will be addressed.
Okay, that helps out quite a bit. Then I was going to ask also is what was the other question I was going to bring up? Has been expressed maybe a little bit this evening and then also at the last minute is that, we're kind of with the number of variances there, the changes that we're looking at making and the 5 stories and so forth, that's what I've been struggling with in terms of you're kind of the last ones to come into this parcel where everything else is built out. And everybody has followed the guidelines up to this point, and then we're coming upon now this 5-story structure. So that's, and I take also note that you've made some adjustments since we last tried to counter some of that. So it's been kind of a struggle on my part to, with that part of it. But I also understand the importance of having diverse types of housing within the community, and that this is to me is an important element coming, especially in location to the rapid transit station. That it helps, balance out that housing needs throughout the city. Do you have any, with your experience in having these type of properties, indication as far as people that have been able to take advantage and qualify for this, that they've been able to, take the next step and use this as an opportunity to work beyond having this type of subsidized type housing, that they'd be able to move forward in higher paying jobs or what have you. Do you have any data or anything that you've been able to show that?
Yep, thanks again, Commissioner Scanlon. I don't have any specific statistics right now, but there are a number of reasons that residents may move out of one of our properties. We typically ask when they move out why they're moving out, and we do often see that sometimes it's because they're buying a house. So we do see that. Tough to say how many residents that is, but it does happen. And then one other kind of clarification with the income limits and the workforce housing, just to clarify. So those income limits apply to when a household is initially applying to the property. But once they are initially qualified, they can make up to 140% of those base limits when they're annually recertified. And the program allows for that so that there's an incentive for these households to get promotions or get raises, you know, and to avoid, you're qualifying for the workforce housing, you get a raise, and now you're getting punished because you have to move out. There are safeguards for that in the system as well.
Okay, that's a good point that you bring up, and I appreciate you doing that, so. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Does anybody else have questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, the next step, Terry, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'll pull up that slide in just a second.
Here, I'll pull it up. Give me one sec.
So before is the recommended actions for this agenda item. There'd be two separate recommendations, or two separate motions.
And that'll cover all the various zoning changes and so forth.
Correct, so the first one, action item would be whether to approve or recommend approval or denial of the plan development number 507 ordinance amendments. And then the second would be recommend approval or denial of the site plan building permit authorization for Valley Station Apartments, subject to those conditions that are in the draft resolution.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, could I have a motion, please?
Yes, Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the plan development number 507 ordinance amendments.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Commissioner Pruitt and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That moves forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We move to the next step.
Excuse me. We need to make another motion on the,
Oh, excuse me,
Site plan.
about the second one. All right,
Yes.
my apologies. Commissioners, could I have a motion for the second item, please?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the site plan building permit authorization for Valley Station Apartments, subject to the conditions in the draft resolution.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hollis and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That also moves forward. So, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 6, other business. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a reminder, your next upcoming meeting will be Wednesday, September 17th, followed by Wednesday, October 1st. We also got informed that we will be hosting our October 15th meeting probably in the Regent Room. They will be doing some modifications or remodeling in this room on the audio-visual equipment. So your middle meeting of October will likely be in the Regency Room, which is right across the hall here. And we'll inform you if that changes or any updates as we know them. Other than that, our councils are 11th and 25th of this month as well. And again, we appreciate your attendance for tonight and hope you have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Next item is adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All right. That was moved by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Hollis. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.